me with a demonstration. Harry Concepcion, Meng Ear, Andrew Lee, Steve Tsao, and Dianna Lynne Sensei will be showing us a little bit of iaido, or sword drawing, at the very end. Okay, so I'm just going to ask Harry Sensei, he's one of the teachers at my school, so just pick somebody, just go out and just give a demonstration. We have some structure, but I'm just going to allow him to do whatever he wants to do. So, okay? Aikido is a relatively new martial art. It was actually open to the public in 1948 officially, but it comes from a very old tradition of martial arts that is centuries old. The man who created it was a man named Morihei Ueshiba. He was born in 1883 in Tanabe, Japan. And what he did was he fused the elements of ancient martial arts with a type of spiritual dimension. Aikido is not just a martial art, it's a bit more. And in the process, he came up with something which is actually even cutting edge today. Aikido is a non-competitive martial art based on harmonization, not conflict. So you notice as the attack comes, the attack is blended with, and the attacker energy is returned to the attacker. In order to train, you must learn how to take the fall so that you can receive the energy of your own attack safely. But Aikido stresses cooperation as opposed to competition. The competition is with yourself. To become a more grounded, centered, relaxed, natural being that lives in harmony with others in the world. The techniques are centuries old, but the philosophy is something that applies more and more to our daily life. So many people that do Aikido really find the philosophy itself is something that is given a physical expression they enjoy including in there every day. Okay, thank you. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have Steve, who's been making some of the balls. He's also going to come out and give a demonstration. And I see we have somebody coming in a little late, which is good. This is also Yu-Chen Shen. Okay? So anyway. So Aikido stresses harmonizing with the attacker, opposing the attacker. O-sensei, we call him O-sensei because he's the person who taught all the teachers, all the other sensei. He said Aikido is non-resistance. Because it's non-resistance, it's always victorious. You can't beat non-resistance. That's quite a deep statement. But you notice what he's doing is he's taking the force and absorbing it like water would. If you put your hand into water, water does not oppose you. If you try to punch water or kick water or choke water, it's still water. Okay? And water, in that sense, is the metaphor for a deeper level of being. Okay? So the movements seem to be circular. The first half of the circle tends to absorb the power, and the second half of the circle returns that power to the attacker. So this is a principle of what we might call yin-yang, but in practice, not just in theory. The actual taking of the falls also requires a lot of skill, because the attacker is supplying the energy for the movement. And must be able to receive that energy back safely. Aikido can also have a system of locks and throws because it comes out of a common body of technique from a lot of what you would call jujitsu. But Aikido's reason for being is very different. It's not a jutsu or technical art. It is really about a way of harmonizing. I is harmony. Ki represents spirit, energy, mind, something that's past the obvious physical senses. And Do is a way of harmonizing with. So the attack, or the attacker, provides an energy. We deal with the energy, and the physical follows where the energy goes. Okay, good. Now, Yu-Chen. These are some of the senior teachers at Aikido of San Jose. So you notice that the senior teachers represent a type of smoothness, a fluidity. Many people find that by doing Aikido, they become much more centered and grounded. Not just in a theoretical sense, but they find themselves in situations being much less reactive. You find everyday life being a lot less stressful because it's about being in balance with yourself. Now, mind and body represent a potential conflict area where you can pick one thing and do something else. But in Aikido, mind and body in harmony is really, in some sense, which generates the flow or the energy that you see. See, a lot of what you see is a physical movement. Okay? But the actual energy is that which propels the movement. And in Japanese, that's referred to as ki. That technique is called the kotegaishi, which is a wrist throw. But as opposed to just a strict manipulation of a joint or pain, there was a yin-yang where the energy of the attacker gets reversed upon the attacker. Smooth. Good Aikido, there's no injury. That doesn't mean that injuries don't occur because accidents do happen. But the movement itself is geared in a way to be very safe and yet at the same time effective in a non-competitive way. Okay. Let's see. We'll put Meng out. And I believe she's going to do Tanto Nori. No? Okay. Sorry. Everybody set. And in Aikido, there is what we call men's division, women's division. Both men and women train together. Okay, and now we're going to have Andrew do a demonstration of, no? Okay. I told them all to prepare stuff, and I think they changed their mind about what they wanted to do at the last moment. Okay. Andrew, by the way, he's a black belt candidate, so he's going to be, if everything falls into place, he's sure taking a black belt exam. Okay? It's probably better that you focus on something a little bit more basic. Yeah. Okay. In fact, since they're preparing anything, why don't you pause there for a second? And why don't you give us a Swarty Waza Ikkyo through Yonkyo? So this, for example, Aikido does have forms. The founder said something quite profound. He said, Aikido has no forms or techniques because it is a study of the spirit. Okay? But we study the spirit of the movements that you see. Okay? So in other words, there's a hectic body here. And what he's doing is a series of 1 through 4 that you'll eventually have to do or demonstrate for his black belt exams. And so there's a series of holds and locks and throws which constitute a body of technique. The founder studied many arts, one of which was Iaido, Jiu-Jitsu. But what happened is as he continued his journey, he found his way of expressing those movements changed radically from the way that they were taught to him. And so he began to see everything as a reflection of what he would call, quote unquote, the harmony of the universe. So he was somewhat of a mystic. But Aikido, you see a yin factor and a yang factor, a mind factor, a body factor, a seeing factor, an unseeing factor. In Aikido, those two things must always be in balance. And so, as the movements themselves are done, there is an unseen dimension to them, which is integrated ideally. Although it may start out on its more basic levels, as seeming to be rather physical and technical. But, again, what Ueshiba O-sensei, the founder, said, Aikido has no techniques because it is, quote unquote, a study of the spirit. There's something underlying physical movements. There's something when it's there that creates a harmony between two opposing forces. That's what Aikido is. But we do have techniques so people can train them. Okay. Let's see. We are going. I'm going to give a little bit of a talk since I have a portable mic for this. Now, the wrist is trapped. Now, there are a variety of movements, but what we're doing here is harmonizing with that situation. You see, if I'm tense and uptight, I create a tense and uptight situation. If I learn to relax, what happens? Situation shifts. Now, when a situation shifts, instead of being locked, you'll notice that it has a yin factor and a yang factor. Okay? Receptive listening, a positive speaking factor. Okay? I'm so limited with one hand here, but for example, here, I can't do that with one hand. But, see, the actual energy spiraling and then smoothly counter-spiraling generates that motion. I would have to be able to do that. Maybe I know the movement with two hands, but one day I'm attacked, I have an arm in a cast. You see, we're not relying on the two hands. We're relying on the energies blending. Now, as you, for example, see, there is a listening half to it, a yin factor, an equal yang factor. The two must be in balance. The two in balance create the harmony of the situation. Now, Ueshiba O-sensei, unfortunately for the rest of us, he achieved a level that the rest of us have not been able to do. But his particular sense was, the universe was created perfectly. It was not created to be a place where things are in conflict. Okay? And he felt that it was possible to stand in that original perfection. And in that original perfection, there is no attack. We do not attack one another. Therefore, what he would tell people was, I can't be defeated, not I, the person, Morihei Ueshiba, but I'm standing in that original harmony of the universe, and you can't beat that. And so he would say things like, there's no measure of fast or slow. In that original space, there's no time or space, really. So he was somebody who spoke in somewhat mystical terms. But he also had a type of a grounding in the fact, like for heaven, earth, water, fire, physics now, he's talking in mystical terms, weak force, strong force, gravity, electromagnetism. See, as he's coming this particular direction, what I'm doing is not trying to oppose him. Rather, let his energy come in and let the energies around organize in a way that complements his energies. This is why it's not just technique. If he grabs my wrist here, for example, now doing this one hand, I can push down, or I can realize that the energy of his attack comes into my center, returns like a fire, like a waterfall. Okay? You see actually that while the shape of the energy. And what's happening is as he comes in, he's also caught in a vortex of other energies. This is what Ueshiba Sensei said. He said, I am one with the universe and nothing else. The universe was designed for each of us to be perfect within it. In which case, there's no imperfection. If there's an imperfection, it's corrected. Now, we're a little far away from where he was. We live in a world of time and space, of stress, and things like that. But he insisted that anybody could touch that because that was the original design. And he would tell people, I don't have any special abilities, I just have the ability to stand there. Right? So you see this, he would demonstrate those movements, and they would be somewhat bizarre because there's no contact. But there is contact. Contact is actually energy. The energies, we're doing a little collision here, so what I'm going to do is a rebalancing or recentering. So when you bump into somebody, you settle a bit more. Because even if the technique somewhat works, what you're trying to do is align to the original perfection of your own system, mind, and body. And then through that, the ideal thing in Aikido, you create a better world around you. With this alignment to his own perfection, beauty, truth. And he said there's no measure of time or space there. See, we're still in the process of evolving to get there. Now, he said that's good, but on the other hand, the truth of it is we're already there. And the question is how to wake up. You see, how to realize that we are there. So the Aikido is something that's still way ahead of its time. Okay, let's see. Let's get the book in. 2 book in. And he studied the sword, so we're going to switch over to Dianna Sensei in a little bit. But from the ancient tradition, I'm going to have to put this down. This is not where life is taken. See, right here, he's shown a vulnerability. If you attack, there's vulnerability here. If you attack, there's a vulnerability here. If you're coming here, there's a vulnerability here. We're not taking that step where he would lose both arms and cut. But he's being educated in that right here. And this is moving. Right? So what I want you to look at is the actual attunement. What I'm trying to do is stand in more of what I call an intuitive space. A feeling space. Boom. Not in a competitive space. That's why I was just said, you can't be beaten, not because somebody can't beat you, but you are in a very good spiritual place. You're not going to lose yourself to be less than you are. It doesn't mean that you're on a bad day. You're not late, but you can correct. Boom. So what we're doing right here, and I'm having to do it with one hand, is say, we're syncing up. As he makes his move, we're often sensing where his move is going. And showing him the opening in his system that's created, not taking even spiritually, as I like to say, we're educating him. You see, if I'm here asleep, he educates me by attacking. So I wake up, the word boom. Okay, so that was as best I can do with Shibuko Sensei's sword. He was so quick, somebody would attack him, and about 4 or 5 times he would just sort of sense the vulnerabilities. Therefore, at this particular point, see, he would sort of know. He stood very, very relaxed. I was just studying this video. He said that whenever I'm attacked, I remain calm. He said I have to leave everything up to the workings of the universe, which he believed represented perfection. Okay? So this is hard to do when somebody attacks you. But most people find out that through the training, they learn to be a bit more in tune with their mind and their body. They find that they're less reactive because they're a bit more relaxed and centered. And they find that they look for situations other than how do I dominate and win. Okay? So what we're going to do now, thank you, is I'm going to turn it over to Dianna Sensei, and she's going to demonstrate Iai for the last part of our demonstration. Iai-jitsu is the art, or iaido, apologies, is the art of drawing and cutting with a Japanese samurai blade. But the blade itself represents, in some sense, the inner spirit. Okay. So you'll find a meditative quality to the movements. Okay, let's do one more draw. I think it's about time. Okay, got one more? Okay.